What is your research and teaching focus?
Okay, in research, I deal mostly in processing, food processing and engineering kind of stuff, but that can also mean making stuff and then also evaluating it, like measuring sensory properties. How does it taste? How much snap does it have and things like that. Specifically, most of the work is in three areas. One is working together with Dr. Peg. We study shelf life of foods, particularly nuts, what kind of packaging, humidity, and temperature affects how fast your pecans are going to go bad. That's one area. Another area for me is reclaiming value from stuff we usually throw away. So it could be tomato skins, muscadine skins, peanut skins, pecan shells, things like that. So we've done things from as far as getting pigments out of pecan shells, using to smoke things with, making extruded products with tomato skin stuff. Kirby now is one of the graduate students who's working on taking dried muscadine skin and processing it with cacao and making chocolate that has some muscadine in with the chocolate. So it's been that kind of thing, things that otherwise people would throw away. And then another area I'm starting in is, so I've always had in addition to processing, I said measuring physical properties is important, like color and the texture of foods and things like that. But there are some things that are hard to measure texture of. And one of those is crispness and crunchiness. So I've dabbled in the area of measuring crispness and crunchiness of foods. How do you actually do that? How do you measure it is not as easy as you might think. And one way is to measure like the forces that are produced when you break it. The other way is to measure sound as it's being busted apart, let's say, or crunched on. But then what do you do with all that data? So that's been a challenge for a lot of researchers out there. So one of the students now is working with machine learning. So that's looking at different, let's say, types of potato chips, recording sounds from them, and see if something about the computer algorithms can be used to figure out what kind of chip, what level of crispness it is just by the sound. And I kind of got started in that because I knew there was things out there like programs now that can record bird sounds and tell you what kind of bird it is. Or I think there's even some work on mosquitoes, or there's some crazy work on they were trying to determine from how people coughed whether or not they had COVID. Some crazy stuff like that. So that's another area, I've been working in lately. So that's enough to keep me busy. So I teach the last food processing class. That's probably the biggest one. So, and that really is focused on how do you make a lot of different types of foods, everything from meat products, brisket, sausages, cheeses, candies, peanut butter, all these sorts of things that, and how do you make it big scale? And we try to do a lot of labs on that. And then the other classes are graduate classes. So I teach food texture analysis. So that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying about research. How do you cut something or break it and figure out how tough the meat is, or how crispy the chicken is, and all that sort of stuff. And then I also do one on food microscopy and structure. I don't think people have an understanding how complicated food is really when you start delving into it. Even something as simple as ice cream is pretty complicated once you start getting out the electron microscopes and things like that. And then also I teach the online brewing class, and then have a few MFT classes too on food ingredients and food processing.
What is your favorite food product to make in your food processing classes, and why?
Well, favorite product in food processing. Well, we like them all. We just made candy, and that's, of course, always great. Except there's a little too much of it now, and it's too good. I think making beer. We do make beer, and the interesting thing about that is there's so many different recipes. The technology of it's really interesting. How do you get sugars out of starch, and how do you boil it, and how do you get the hop flavor in, and all that sort of thing, and get the yeast to go and to ferment it? I think what makes it exciting, though, is that you kind of have to wait You know, so it's like growing a garden or something, you know, it's like you don't get it right away. You got to wait for the yeast to go and you're, oh, it doesn't seem like it's working. And then it starts to work. And then after a week or two, you know, something good is there, you hope. So, you know, that's probably one of the more interesting ones to do.